On today's show, the Cavs looked like the Cavs again on Tuesday night. That's a very good sign as this team heads into a Christmas Day showdown against the Knicks. We'll talk about everything that went right in Tuesday night's win over the New Orleans Pelicans on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, everybody. My name is Danny Cunningham, and I cover the Cleveland Cavaliers over at my Substack, The Inside Shot, and you're listening to another edition of Locked On Cavs, which, of course, is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in all of America. You can find this show and any other Locked On podcast anywhere you get them. That means Apple, that means Spotify, and that does mean on YouTube too. So if you're watching right now, do us a favor, please hit that thumbs up button as we begin. Click subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. And again, on YouTube, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from us here at Locked On Cavs. And today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we'll talk about what went right in the win for the Cavs over the red-hot New Orleans Pelicans. I do think this is a nice win. We'll talk about the hidden impact of Sam Merrill being back, plus Darius Garland being able to play back-to-back games for the first time this season, and why it's okay to feel good about where the Cavs are at heading into Christmas Day. But we have to start by talking about this game because the Cavs beat the Pelicans 141-118. And on paper, like, you look at the Pelicans, oh, they're now 8-23. Like, that's not an impressive win. And you shouldn't be impressed by these two wins over Charlotte, who's 9-20, or I guess 10-20 after they beat Washington on Tuesday night. That doesn't matter. Just as I have said, after so many of the losses the Cavs have had, when I've gotten up here and talked negatively about what that team has looked like, which all of it, I believe, was fair and justified and all that, it has always been about the Cavs. It has been about the way the Cavs are playing basketball. It's not about who they play. It's about what the Cavs have done or negatively have not done on certain nights. And this game, similar to Monday night's game against Charlotte, is all about the Cavs. And to, like, the Pelicans had won 5 straight games or 6 straight games, whatever it was, like 5 straight games. They were the hottest team in basketball. They've been playing good basketball. They beat Dallas on Monday night. So it was the second night of a back-to-back for New Orleans as well, but they've got some good wins in that stretch. They beat Houston. Like, this is a team that, because of some of the health situations that they've had and their coaching situation earlier in the year, I look at as a little bit better than the record that I just, again, don't think matters too much. I think this is so much about the way the Cavs played basketball. And offensively, I thought that this was a very impressive game. I would say that this was a better offensive game for the Cavs. And I know that the numbers don't necessarily say that. Like, their offensive rating was higher against Charlotte on Monday night, but I was more impressed with what they did on Tuesday because, yes, they shot the ball well from beyond the arc again. They hit 23s in this game, and this is the first time this season the Cavs have hit 23s in back-to-back games, which felt like they did it every single night last year. But they shot over 50% from 3 against the Hornets on Monday night. They shot 40%, 41% from 3 against the Pelicans on Tuesday, which is still a really good number. But when you shoot 54% from 3 the way the Cavs did on Monday, like, that could, and I'm not necessarily saying it even did, that can mask some things offensively because you just have such a great shooting night from the outside that maybe you don't have a great night in other areas, but it doesn't matter because you just destroyed the opponent from beyond the arc. And the Cavs were really good from 3. They took more of them in this game. They took 49, which is a little high for my liking, but when you take 105 shots, the fact that they took 49 threes and that was still fewer than 50% of their shot frequency, I do look at that as a good sign. Like, that's an okay number to be at. But the way that the ball is moving right now, like in this game against the Pelicans, the Cavs had 40 assists. That follows up 36 assists that they had on Monday night against the Hornets. This is a team that looks so drastically different. And I know that Sam Merrill being back has a big, it's like a huge part of that, right? And I didn't necessarily anticipate that Sam would make his return and the Cavs would just instantly look like this. I thought it would take some time. I thought it would be a nice jolt for a team that very clearly needed it, but I didn't think that it would just be the snap of a fingers and, oh, okay, the Cavs are an elite offensive team again. And it's not to say they're going to be this every night, and they need to prove this against better teams, and they need to do this consistently. before it really matters. But I do think that this is a glimpse into what this Cavs basketball team was supposed to be. They were supposed to be a team filled with great shooters. They were supposed to be a team that's able to get downhill and attack the paint and do those things. They were supposed to be a team that was supposed to be incredibly balanced on both ends of the floor. If you listen to the show over the course of the summer, I talked a lot about how they just have role players that couldn't necessarily be played off the floor. And had the playoffs been now, that wouldn't have been true, because the Cavs have had so many guys that offensively wouldn't be able to stay on the floor. And in the last 2 games, and again, this needs to be more than a 2-game sample size before it's a real thing, but I do look at it and I think it's a very real reason for optimism about the Cavs. They're clicking in so many ways offensively, and I think a lot of it has to do with the movement that Sam Merrill brings into the offense. And he was in the starting lineup on Tuesday night. He was not in the starting lineup on Monday night. And I do like that move. Kenny Atkinson said it was for defensive purposes. And he said Mike Garrity, one of the Cavs assistant coaches, suggested it because of how good Sam was defensively against Charlotte on Monday night. While Sam is a good defender, he is certainly helpful in that area. And the Cavs in the first quarter held the Pelicans to 22 points. So I do think that paid off, at least early on in the game. But I think the movement that he brings offensively really does matter and really helps the Cavs to get off on the right foot. And I just think that when he's out there, the Cavs feel like a much better team. And when he can sort of set the tone, like when he can be an offensive tone setter, not by going out there and scoring points. And like, yes, he hit 2 threes early on in this game, and that was great to see. I'm sure it felt great for him after he missed all 4 threes that he took against Charlotte. But I think that it sets a tone that the offense is not going to be a stagnant group that night, because so frequently I think the Cavs have gotten too stagnant offensively. And I think that's a big reason why some of their role players have struggled. Like, I think while DeAndre Hunter can certainly be a guy that can win in isolation on both ends of the floor, can be somebody that can create his own offense in a perfect world, can be sort of that microwave scorer at times. He benefits from the defense being in movement, right? Being in motion, because when Sam is moving, when other guys are moving, when the ball is moving the way that it is, that means the defense has to react. And the Cavs are so much more difficult to defend when those things are true. Because if the defense doesn't have to follow the ball from side to side so frequently, and they don't have to chase guys around as frequently as they've had to the past couple of nights, it's easier for them to load up on Donovan Mitchell, load up on Darius Garland, load up on Evan Mobley when he's been in there, load up on DeAndre Hunter when he's running that second unit. Like, those things are so much easier to stop when the Cavs are stagnant offensively. And Sam Merrill bringing back the movement that he plays with really, I do think, has unlocked this team offensively in a way that we have not seen them be unlocked all season long. And I think that's a really, really important thing to think about. Now, are there still things that they can improve upon? Absolutely. Like, I did not think they did a great job near the rim, particularly against Zion Williamson defensively. Like, there are things they can improve upon. And again, this is ultimately a win against a team that, while they've been playing very well lately, is not an upper echelon team in the NBA, right? Like, it's not like they went out there and did this against the Houston Rockets or the New York Knicks, the 2 teams that they're playing coming up. They did this against a team that they were supposed to do this against. However, they've not done that, right? Like, think about what this month of December has been. The Cavs have faced a lot of teams that are in the same tier, if you will, as the New Orleans Pelicans. They lost to the Charlotte Hornets. They lost to the Chicago Bulls twice. They needed a miraculous comeback to beat the Washington Wizards. Had the Cavs played like this, I'm not even talking like effort-wise, which I thought the effort was good again on Tuesday, similar to what it was on Monday. And I think you always can kind of wonder what that's going to look like on the second night of a back-to-back. And I do think the Cavs really passed that test. At no point on Tuesday in that building did I think, you know what, the Cavs could be playing harder than they are, which is a really good sign. But even if you put the effort, energy level, all that stuff that has been an issue in the past, and again, was not an issue on Tuesday, put that aside and just say, like, stylistically, if the Cavs would have played offense like they did on Monday, like they did on Tuesday, against the Bulls both games, against the Wizards before that, against the Hornets last Sunday when they lost in overtime, against the Golden State Warriors when the Warriors beat them 99-94 3 weeks ago. The Cavs win all those games. Like, had they had this stylistic shift, and again, a lot of this I do think has to do with Sam Merrill, but had they had this stylistic shift, we're talking about a team that is heading into Christmas on an 8-game winning streak. Instead, we're talking about a team that maybe should start to feel good about itself, but I do think that those reasons for optimism are real. And I thought Donovan Mitchell was really good again in this game, but when Donovan has had these big games in the past, they have felt super loud, if you will, because the Cavs have needed him to put them on his back. And in this game, Donovan had 27 points. He did it on 11 of 16 shooting. He was super efficient. He was only 2 of 6 from 3, like not his best shooting night from the outside, but he was really good when he was able to get downhill. But it didn't feel like Donovan needed to work that hard. And again, second night in a row, he played under 30 minutes. And on Monday night, he had 30 points. In this game, he had 27. Like that, to me, should be more of the blueprint for Donovan Mitchell, for what his role looks like on the Cavs. And yeah, there are going to be nights against better teams where they need him to go out there and really carry the Cavs in a way that they didn't need him to on Monday night, on Tuesday night. But in the games they've played against teams like Charlotte, like New Orleans, they have needed him to really carry them. And I think that is a really, really big thing. And Sam was really good in this game. Like I've talked so much about the effect that he has because I do think the movement thing is real, but like also he hit 6 threes, right? Like maybe that's burying the lead. The fact that Sam shot the ball really, really well, that he hit his first couple, finished 6 of 10 from 3, was 7 of 12 from the floor, had 22 points, but he also had 7 of 6 and 6 rebounds. Like he played a very, very complete basketball game. And I just think that is something that has been missing from the Cavs so much. And there's, I think, a very real debate or discussion, maybe is a better word, to be had about whether or not the Cavs should have missed Sam Merrill as much as they did. Like, should they have played as poorly as they have over the past month without Sam Merrill? No, they should have been better. The effort could have been better. They could have been doing some of these things, not to say that they can replicate everything Sam does, because I think that he and Max Strus are the two guys that are kind of in this bucket, if you will, in terms of play style. And when they're both out, it's really hard to replicate. So like they could not have played exactly like this over the past month, but I don't know they should have missed him as much as they did, but there is no debate that they did miss him this much, because it's hard for me to look at this and just say, yeah, Sam Merrill coming back, like that's everything they missed, but it kind of has been true. Like he's been a good rebounder for them in the 2 games back. He's been a very good decision maker. He's a great ball mover. Like he does those things that the Cavs have so sorely missed. And that's why I do think after this 2-game stretch, which again, against teams that have a combined 43 losses on the season before Christmas. So it's, I think, important to not get ahead of your skis here, but the Cavs have looked like the Cavs. And if I'm going to sit here and say in some of these losses that they've had that have been bad losses, that it's so much more about what the Cavs have done and who the Cavs have looked like than it is who the Cavs have played, well, I have to be true to that in the wins too. This was a game that was so much more about what the Cavs did right than anything the Pelicans did or didn't do. And because of that, I think it's okay to feel good about where this team is at, even if there are some not so great memories in the past, the not so distant past about this team. I do think that this game, these 2 games, could be looked at as evidence of the Cavs moving in the right direction. Now, there's another benefit of Sam Merrill coming back that I think is worth talking about. It has nothing to do with anything he actually does on the floor. It just has to do with him being available. We'll talk about that. Plus, is 3-point shooting infectious? I kind of think it is. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Cavs suddenly look really good when certain guys are hitting shots. So we'll talk about those things next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. The holiday season, one of the best times for sports. You've got bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening right at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is with PrizePicks. PrizePicks, the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. PrizePicks has also added an extra layer of excitement this holiday schedule because you can create a lineup that takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and simple. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats: fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. you can find a way to do it. Plus, they've got an early payout feature that's a great bonus because when your lineup starts off strong, you might get the option to cash out early. And then no matter what happens, you're a winner. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that is code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineup after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen. And please make sure you check out the Locked On Cavs Everydayer Club. You can find a link in the show description that will get you access to an ad-free version of Locked On Cavs, plus access to a subscribers-only Discord channel where you can chat about the Cavs with other Cavs fans like yourself. Again, a link is in the show description, both on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And Sam Merrill being back has changed a lot about what the Cavs look like offensively. But it also has a change that's not a stylistic one for the Cavs, but I think it's actually more important than the stylistic changes he's brought. I think Sam being back has sort of balanced out the rotation in a way that it hasn't been before. And I think that obviously the role players or the depth pieces, maybe more accurately for the Cavs, some of them have had very good years. Naquan Tomlin, I think, has far exceeded what any two-way should be expected to do. I think Jalen Tyson, who had a good game on Tuesday night after a not so good game on Monday night, I think he has far exceeded what his expectations were, certainly externally coming into the season. Like, he has blown those away so far this year. I think in most of his opportunities, Craig Porter Jr. has been really, really good for the Cavs this year. I think Tyrese Proctor has exceeded what any 49th overall draft pick should be asked to do as a rookie. I think all of those things are true. But they've also, all of those guys has been asked to do more than what probably they should be asked to do. And when you have so many guys that are out, as the Cavs have, and yes, they did not have Lonzo Ball in this game. Evan Mobley is still out. Larry Nance Jr. is still out, although we are about 3 weeks away. So we should get an update on Larry, I think, fairly soon about his progress. And Max Strus has still not played yet this year. So they still have guys out. Like, they were still missing theoretically 4 rotation players in this game, but missing 4 rotation players instead of missing 5 or 6 or even at times 7 rotation players is a really big difference, because instead of asking a guy like Naquan Tomlin to go out there and play 20 minutes in a game that you kind of feel like you have to win, Naquan Tomlin is a guy that just plays the last 3.5 minutes of the game. Like, he's the guy that had mop-up duty. Instead of asking Tyrese Proctor, who at times they've asked to go play 17 minutes in a game, he plays 8 minutes. He had a shift in the first half and then he played mop-up duty. Like, instead of asking Jalen Tyson to go out there, and, there's a debate to be had about whether or not he should have been in the starting lineup. I thought this was the right decision for the Cavs, but there's a debate about whether or not he should be asked to do that at this point, because coming into the season, Jalen, again, has really blown away expectations. But Kenny said that he thought he was going to be like the 11th man. And I talked on this show about the best thing Jalen could do was make it really difficult for Kenny to not play him when Max gets back. And yes, he's been really, really good, but I just think that those guys have all had their roles bumped up, not even a peg, but like 3 pegs on the pecking order. And that's a really difficult way to navigate a season. And the Cavs have had to do that. And Sam being back doesn't necessarily put those guys back into where they would normally be slotted. Like, they're still above that, but they're closer to where they should be. And when those guys are closer to where they should be, it kind of sets everything into balance, right? Like, the Cavs don't need to, when Sam is back, and I'm not saying that they're asking too much of Sam. I think he's maybe over delivering a little bit with everything that he provides. And they are giving him a lot of credit for what he has done over the past 2 games in terms of the way that he's transformed things. But it means they have to ask less of DeAndre Hunter. They have to ask less of a guy like Dean Wade, who had another solid night, maybe not quite as good in this game as he was on Monday night, but he had another solid night. They're asking less of him. They're asking less of Jalen Tyson. And it's not to say that they're asking Sam to do too much, because I don't think that's the case either. But I look at it and say, the fact that they're asking these other guys who have had to do so much just for the Cavs to stay afloat to do less, I think really helps this team. I think it really helps this team be able to have everybody in the proper role. And I think that when guys are in the proper role, they are set up to be successful in a way that they haven't always been. And some of those guys have found ways to be successful. Really, I think all of them at times have, but the Cavs' success shouldn't have to hinge on their success. And I think that the more you can minimize that, the better the Cavs are going to be. It's not going to say the Cavs aren't going to need Naquan Tomlin to do things at important times in the year, because I bet they will. The Cavs are going to need Jalen Tyson, Craig Porter Jr., Tyrese Proctor. They're going to need those guys at certain points in the year, but they shouldn't need those guys every night the way they have been. And the return of Sam Merrill does that. When Evan gets back, that's going to be something that pushes those guys down another peg. When Max finally makes his debut at some point, probably in January, that's going to be something that just further puts this team in the proper order. Darius Garland returning and really starting to play good basketball. I know he wasn't necessarily great on Tuesday, but I think that that's another thing that just kind of reorders everything. Like, it's not as if the Cavs are reshuffling the deck. They're putting the cards in the right order. And that is something that this team has been missing. And I think that's a big part of the reason why the Cavs have looked so much better over the past couple of games, because they're asking the appropriate amount of contributions from the guys that they're asking contributions from, if that makes sense. Like, they're not asking outsized contributions from role players. And I think that's a really important thing when you look at why maybe at times they have struggled the way that they have. And one of the other things coming out of this game that I was very curious, because it's back-to-back games now where the Cavs have hit 20 or more three-pointers. They hit 24 against Charlotte, and they hit exactly 20 against the Pelicans, is shooting infectious, because I kind of get the feeling that it is. Like, I don't think that it is some coincidence that on Monday they hit a bunch of threes, because like everyone felt good about it. I thought it was ironic that Sam didn't hit any, but I don't think it was like coincidence that Dean Wade sees a few go through, and then DeAndre Hunter sees a few go through, two guys that have been struggling, and Darius Garland goes 5 of 6 from 3 in that game. Like, I don't think those things are coincidental that they happened the way they did. I do think that there is a little bit of contagiousness to shooting, and I think that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. I don't think it's a surprise that when one guy is in a slump, the way that maybe DeAndre Hunter or Dean Wade was, or Lonzo Ball was, who again hit a couple of threes on Monday night, I don't think it's a surprise that that can kind of drag others down, just in the same way that the rising tide here can sort of raise all boats. And I think from beyond the 3-point arc, that has sort of been the case with the Cavs. And I think that is a really, really good thing. One of the other hidden benefits I do want to talk about, the connector role. Kenny Atkinson mentions it all the time. And I think that that is exactly what the Cavs have been missing. We'll talk about that and how I think that could even lead to a little bit more connection next, right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show brought to you by Game Time. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building, the energy, the crowd, the big run that teams go on that gets everyone on their feet. We call that a Cavalanche here in Cleveland. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. And that's where Game Time comes in, because the Game Time app gives fans the advantage back. They make it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without the guesswork. I actually ran into a friend at the game on Tuesday night. Saw me in the concourse after I grabbed dinner before the game. And my friend Kevin, he goes, dude, I got great seats tonight. You go, oh, that's awesome. Where are you sitting? He goes, I'm like 5 rows off the floor opposite the bench. You go, oh, wow, that's sick. How'd you get those tickets? It's like, man, I went on Game Time and I used the code Locked On NBA. And when he used that code Locked On NBA, what he did was he got $20 off his first purchase. His experience was simple, fast, easy, pressureless. Wasn't surprised at the last minute with hidden fees. He got to know what his seat was going to look like. And I have not talked to him since, but I assume he had a great time at the game because the Cavs looked awesome and he had awesome seats. And if you want that to be you, maybe you're in New York, you want to check out the Christmas Day game. Maybe you're in Texas, you want to go in Houston or in San Antonio over the weekend. Game Time is the way to get in the building. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA. Again, that is Locked On NBA, LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today and get in on the action. Thank you again for making today's edition of Locked On Cavs your first listen, and thank you to those of you that make Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. And Kenny Atkinson uses the word connector quite a bit. If you have listened to his press conferences over the past 2 years, or if you have listened to this podcast, or if you have read anything that I have written over at my Substack, The Inside Shot, you're very aware that connector is one of his favorite words. And Sam Merrill is that. And I think that having him as a connector that's hitting shots really opens things up. And I also think that the role players other than Sam that are connectors, I think there are two of them. I think it's Max, who, again, has not played this year. And I think Lonzo is the other one. But the Lonzo experience has not gone as many, certainly myself, anticipated it would. He's not been that connector. And I think a lot of that has to do with him not hitting shots so far this year. And I do wonder if with Sam back, if we're going to start to see an uptick there, because if we do, then I think this team is really, really going to take off with him on the floor. Like, I thought that he was really good in the game against Charlotte on Monday night. I thought his minutes were fantastic in the 24 minutes he played. Like, he had a 22 net rating. Cavs had an offensive rating of 146 with him on the floor. And I just do think that he's going to be a guy that is really, really going to benefit from this. And when Max gets back, like, this was, I think, a blueprint for what the Cavs should look like. Do they need to be better defensively at times? Absolutely. But overall, I think there's a lot to like about this game. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about this Cavs team right now. Now, they go into Christmas Day for what I think is going to be a very, very big game. They've not had a showcase game like this. I mean, maybe the game against Houston, but like, they've had so many guys out that they've not had a showcase game like this since opening night, which of course was also in New York. And I think that the Cavs can feel good about themselves going into this game. If I had said that 2 days ago, like, imagine if I had said, yeah, the Cavs are going to feel good about themselves going into the Christmas Day game against the Knicks. Let's say I would have said that for Monday morning's podcast. So prior to the game against the Hornets, you probably would have turned the podcast off and said, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or you would have kept listening and laughed at me. But now I feel like it's true. I think that the vibe of this team has completely shifted from what it was 72 hours ago. I think that this is a team that has more belief. I think this is a team that understands what it's supposed to look like now. I think this is a team that truly is heading in the right direction. Now, they need to do it against New York. They need to do it against Houston, against San Antonio. Like, this is a tough 3-game road trip that they have coming up. They need to play the way they did, even if they don't go like 3-0 on this trip. If they play the way they did against Charlotte, against New Orleans in these next 3 games, then I think it's going to be like, okay, I'm not going to say it was silly to panic, but things feel much better, right? Like, there's a reason why this team was the favorites in the Eastern Conference heading into this season. Like, we can kind of pump the brakes on all of the outside noise that I really don't think there's much ado about in regards to personnel moves and stuff like that. I think that is something that is all going to go away if the Cavs look good over these next 3 games. And then they have a tough stretch too afterwards when they come back home. But I look at this and just think the Cavs are headed in the right direction. This was the first time they've won back-to-back games basically in a month, right? I think that's a big deal. It's the first time this year they've hit 20 or more threes in 2 straight games. I think that's a big deal. I think the Cavs have started to look like the Cavs. And I think most importantly about that is there have been these little spurts where the Cavs have looked good. Think like the third quarter against the Spurs in that game they won, where they outscored San Antonio 44-19. The Cavs look great. Or maybe that win in Detroit the first week of the season, or I guess second week of the season, when they went in there and won by whatever it was. They were leading by 35 and just completely dominated the Pistons. Or maybe it was one of their other wins that they had, like Washington early in the season, Philly early in the season. Like, those games were impressive. But what the Cavs failed to do was build on them. They didn't do what they did on Tuesday night. And that's why I think ultimately this game is so important, because the Cavs aren't, taking a victory lap. They're not celebrating. They shouldn't be. Like, ultimately they won 2 games in December. Congratulations. But what's important is they did the right things on Monday night. And so frequently they've done the right things and then just kind of stopped. This time they did them, and then they did them better the next night. They're building on it. And I think that, to me, is the biggest reason for optimism. Now, like I said, they have to go out and they have to do this against New York. They have to go out. They have to do this against Houston. They have to do this against San Antonio. They have to do this against the really good teams, because that's ultimately who they're going to be judged against. They're not going to be judged positively because they beat the Pelicans by 23 points in a game that they led by 28. That's no one's going to judge them on that. That's what they're supposed to do. But the problem had been they were not doing what they were supposed to do. And in order to get to your expectations, you first have to do what you're supposed to do. And these two games were the step in the right direction that the Cavs desperately needed to take. Now we will see what it looks like against the New York Knicks on Christmas Day. So just a programming note. I had the front half of the whip round that earlier this week, whether you're a podcast, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube, those shows previewing these two games obviously have come and gone. Thursday's episode of Locked On Cavs, wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, is going to be the back half of the whip round. We're going to talk to Gavin Shaw from Locked On Knicks and Jackson Gatlin from Locked On Rockets. That's what Thursday, Christmas Day, that's going to be the first show in your inbox. And then I will be at Madison Square Garden. I will be watching Cavs and Knicks. I will be covering that game for both here at Locked On Cavs and my Substack, The Inside Shot. And I will have a post-game episode, whatever happens between the Cavs and Knicks on Christmas Day. That will be in your feeds probably around 6 o'clock in the evening on Christmas. So make sure you check that out. And then there will not be an additional episode on Friday. That will be your Friday episode, really the second Thursday episode. And then, of course, the Cavs play Saturday. So I will have you covered with whatever happens in that game as well. But thank you for hanging out with us here with Locked On Cavs today. I very much do appreciate it, especially if you're traveling for Christmas and you throw on Locked On Cavs. I very much do appreciate it. So thank you for finding us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Please do us a favor, give us a nice rating, give us a nice review, and subscribe. And as we get out of here on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'll be back tomorrow talking about the Cavs and the New York Knicks.